Negative Gravity, The Mannheim Effect by Alexander James. This is a short synopsis. Negative Gravity is a story in which a bed-bound quadriplegic takes pencil in mouth and illustrates an epic in which the Earth's magnetic field is reversed for 24 hours. During this time, the young man, the protagonist, must undergo a harrowing odyssey to obtain his sister's desperately needed insulin. Along his journey, he must battle vicious dogs, swarms of ravenous rats, all the while coming up with clever ways to obtain his sister's medicine. His back pressed tightly against the walls of home, he must tread lightly, walking along the eaves of roofs, all which threaten to give way as growing earthquakes threaten to tear homes from their foundation. Negative Gravity is not the ordinary science fiction story, no. Our hero is forced to face a myriad of dangers, such as streams of molten magma that spew from the open fissures above. He must risk his life 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, as large passenger planes find no place to land, for the ground is now above and the empty sky below. Watch as the oceans rise in a single curtain. You will be awestruck as hapless victims cry out in terror as they too are caught in the deadly grips of this bizarre phenomenon, their bodies hurling up into the infinite sky. All the while the young hero is being slowly stalked by an axe-wielding madman. Will the young man's quest be successful? Will he reach his sister in time? Or will he fall prey to the many deadly impediments that face him? Negative Gravity asks one question. What would you do if you went to sleep on your living room couch and woke up on its ceiling? Hello world, my name is Alexander James. I'm a bed-bound quadriplegic of 40 years. 40 years laying in a hospital bed. 40 years stuck in one room, imprisoned between four walls. Can you imagine that? But don't feel sorry for me, for during that time, I've journeyed through worlds long dead and worlds yet unborn. Let me take you into the wondrous realm of my imagination. That is the key to life. The journey in life isn't the destination, it's the journey, the adventure of it. Let me show you a project that has taken me 10 years to complete. Negative Gravity, in which I turn the world literally upside down for 24 hours. I think you'll be very pleased when you see it. It might help inspire you to envision a world upside down. Here it is. 1, maybe 2 minutes of my storyboard trailer, Negative Gravity, The Mannheim Effect, by yours truly, Alexander James. Negative Gravity, The Mannheim Effect by Alexander James. This is a short synopsis. Negative Gravity is a story in which a bed-bound quadriplegic takes pencil in mouth and illustrates an epic in which the Earth's magnetic field is reversed for 24 hours. During this time, the young man, the protagonist, must undergo a harrowing odyssey to obtain his sister's desperately needed insulin. Along his journey, he must battle vicious dogs, swarms of ravenous rats, all the while coming up with clever ways to obtain his sister's medicine. His back pressed tightly against the walls of home, he must tread lightly, walking along the eaves of roofs, all which threaten to give way as growing earthquakes threaten to tear homes from their foundation. Negative Gravity is not the ordinary science fiction story, no. Our hero is forced to face a myriad of dangers, such as streams of molten magma that spew from the open fissures above. He must risk his life 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, as large passenger planes find no place to land, for the ground is now above and the empty sky below. Watch as the oceans rise in a single curtain. You will be awestruck as hapless victims cry out in terror as they too are caught in the deadly grips of this bizarre phenomenon, their bodies hurling up into the infinite sky. All the while, the young hero is being slowly stalked by an axe-wielding madman. Will the young man's quest be successful? Will he reach his sister in time? Or will he fall prey to the many deadly impediments that face him? Negative Gravity asks one question. What would you do if you went to sleep on your living room couch and woke up on its ceiling?
Alexander James, thanks for this opportunity. I saw you on a television program and I was impressed not only with your story, but the energy you put into this project, living the life that you live that most people couldn't even imagine. Tell us a little bit about this science fiction project and what it's all about.
Well, Johnny, it came about in an unusual way. I was bedbound when I was 19 years old on 1977, September 30th, 1977, on a lovely day on Carbon Canyon Road in Chino, California. I was on a motorcycle, hit a skid and crashed, and my life had changed at 19. It it would seem like you would think a young man 19 years old and bedbound, quadriplegic, would think his life was over. Indeed, I did think it was over. But I did not stop using my imagination. I had to do something to pass the time. And they hadn't invented video games then back in 77. I have no use of my hands. I can move my arms, but you need thumbs to play video games. So thank goodness that was not an option for me. So I had no opportunity for someone of other person to envision and use their imagination for me to play games that they have imagined.
Well,
So I I envisioned my own world. I created my own world, Mr. Burrell. So
and how long did it take you to get to that point of saying to yourself, there's something I can do with my life? Was it a year or two or five or
oh man,
10?
after 10 years, it was my sister, my only sister, and her husband passed away when my nephews were quite young. They gave me three nephews and a niece, and when they
We're
one
looking at your sister now,
yes,
and
that's
you
my
as a
sister
young,
Noreen.
able-bodied man, and your
Yes,
mother is in this frame as
yes,
well.
yes. She's quite young there. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is back in 1977, Chino, California. Yeah, my sister Noreen there. She had asthma. Her husband isn't on the photo, but he had a sudden heart attack, and he died, leaving my three nephews. One was 1 years old. The youngest was one, Walter James. And so there's my mother and I, a bedbound quadriplegic and a working woman trying to raise four little orphan children. So they were boys. I could not play baseball with them or run and catch with them. So we played imagination games. And I guess that's what helped build my imagination and help there too. I would call them into the room, let them lay on the floor, tell them to close their eyes, and I'd envision worlds for them in which they could explore. So this negative gravity is just an extension of the universe that is my mind. And I would like to invite the world to journey through the wondrous realm of Alexander's mind.
How did they respond to this imaginary world?
They're like children. They love anything. Sometimes I would give them a maze. And the maze, at the end of the maze would be a red door, a green door, or a blue door. But I always there was always something behind one door, but they never knew which was. So we would have little pieces of paper. My mother would write down little things, and they would reach into the bag and pull out what's behind the red door. And sometimes it might be a dragon, and they'd have to run. Oh. Sometimes it was a little girl, and they'd have to aid the little girl into her adventure to get her to point A, from point A to point B. It was a real lot of fun. The boys, they're all in their 30s now, and they never forgot it. They always love it. They love the game.
Tell us about this story. There's a hero or a shero in the Mannheim Effect. Tell us a little bit about what the plot, if you will,
Okay, very
is.
very good. All right. Well, the story is about a bedbound quadriplegic, myself, who's crying out to God to give him a vision, to give him something to live for, something that the world will remember him by. And so, gazing up out of the window, looking up, laying on my back as I do so many hours, I look out the window and I encourage your viewers when they're laying on their back, looking up, if their window is open, to look out their window and look at the overhanging eave of the roof. And imagine a world in which gravity's reversed. That's what I did. It's about a bedbound quadriplegic who imagines how and what would he do if the world's gravity were suddenly reversed. It's the crux of it is, what would you do if you went to sleep on your living room couch and woke up on its ceiling? That is the crux. The hero is a young man who, during this time, must obtain his sister's insulin, like the storyboard said. But it's really about me, my struggle, and a man with a pencil in his mouth, propped up on his elbow, drawing on a sketch pad for years and years, envisioning page after page, putting it on the wall, and creating an epic.
Yeah, we're looking at some of your pictures now. Go ahead.
Yes. These in which I have to get this character from point A to point B. How do I get, what would you do? How would you get to the neighbor's home if gravity was reversed and it was pulling your house from its foundation?
Wow.
That's very good. So I encourage everyone to dream, to use their
To dream.
imagination.
How did you, were you an artist before your accident? I mean, in terms of drawing these pictures, I first saw them, I mean, really phenomenal, just phenomenal. Were you an artist before, or did you learn to draw? How'd you do it?
Well, I'm telling you, I did have art classes. I was art in school, but I hadn't drawn in years since, my accident. So I waited till I was about 45 years old, and I says, well, if you're not getting any younger, you might as well do something. You've had this idea of inspiration in your mind all this time. Put it on paper, because I started looking into films and how to get a script together, and they said you need a storyboard.
Right.
So in the storyboard, you got to draw. So I started drawing, and the more I drew, the better I got at it. So I'm impressed sometimes myself with some of these drawings. So illustrations are quite well done.
More
Quite
than well done.
yeah.
How long would it take you to do, for an example, just a face of a figure? Would it take you hours, a day, 2 days?
Each picture, each page was about 2 hours. It depends on the
Wow.
detail. So that's a lot of man hours. But I started working on it when I was 45, and I'm closing in on 60 now. I'm 59, so it took about 7 years of storyboarding. But I'm not. It doesn't really upset me, because it took the creative avatar. What is his name? He took him 6 years to illustrate his storyboard for Avatar. So I'm in good company. 7 years not bad for a guy without the use of hands. So then it took me I had to use my Dragon. I have my headphones usually to control my computer, my Dragon Naturally Speaking. So I have to, I thank God for technology, or none of this would have been possible. So with my Dragon, I wrote the script, storyboard, and now the book will be out soon. So Negative Gravity, The Mannheim Effect by Alexander James.
And along the way, when you were down or depressed, your mother has always been there for you, first of all.
Absolutely.
And talk about the part that she has played in your rehabilitation and just your sanity and even this project.
Yes, my mother has been a great great strain on my sanity. Oh, I'm sorry. A great, a great aid to keeping me sane. Freudian slip. I'm sorry. Mom, I would like to introduce my muse and my mother, Mrs. Levada James.
They say that wisdom comes with age. However, I find that debatable because Alex has been an inspiration to me. I have learned a lot from him, how he has courageously dealt with his infirmities. You will never find him depressed. He consistently has a gift of humor, and he uses it on a daily basis. I also admire how he can take his pencil in mouth and draw without fatigue endless pictures of leaves. There is one picture in particular I would like to draw your attention to. I myself know that I could never have done it. I constantly refer to this picture, and I think anybody with a disability would agree with me that it is an inspiration from not, from within, and it could only have been inspired by the gift of the Holy Spirit, I say. Oftentimes, we have these disabilities, and we question God. And as I said before, his inspiration is from an inner spirit. You asked what was Alex doing in addition to promoting negative gravity, the Mannheim effect, the storyboard, and the book. He's working on another novel. It's called The Curse of the Mandrake. Now, that will be a universal appeal. That will have universal appeal because he uses a phrase that will replace anything you've ever used or heard from before.
Yes.
If you wanted to degrade a person. He
I
has
would-
one phrase, I won't mention it, you have to buy the book. It's not published yet, but he is working on it, and it's going to have 2 sequels. It's going to be book 1, 2, and 3. So that's just an indication of how tirelessly he works and using his imagination and his drawing skills and his ability to realize what he wants.
She's my best friend, my best supporter, my biggest fan. So that's always encouraging when you have your mother pushing you, encouraging you. Don't give up. you know.
Why science fiction versus maybe another kind of story that you chose?
That's a good question. Well, there's I grew up in Los Angeles in the '60s, and I was breastfed on Bernard Herrmann. His music would take you to another place, and Ray Harryhausen, his animation. So all my life has been toward science fiction and animation. I love Jules Verne's and H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. I grew up in the golden age of television
Yes.
when they would say in color, when color was something new.
In living color.
And then living live in living color.
Right.
That was great. So, so yes, that's about science fiction is the thing, and there's very few black people of color, I would say, in the genre, and I want to bust the door wide open and show that science fiction isn't that has no color, has no
Sure.
creed,
Absolutely.
no gender.
Yeah, I talked to another young black man, Jason Stewart, and his thing is science fiction. And I think you were the other black person, male or female, that I saw that was whose themes and whose interest was science fiction. So that kind of got my attention as well, aside from just your energy and the story. What would you say to? Let me back up a second. When you go back 40 years on that day when you were 19 years old, how was your life before that time, and had you ever faced some kind of challenges that you thought were just out of the question, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in this predicament, if you will? How was your life before? Do you think about that and at all sometimes?
Well, my life was the average American teenager's life. I had a motorcycle. I had a nice room, my little stereo and headphones, and I would sketch and little summer jobs. So I was like every young man. I wasn't. My mind toward thoughts toward the future weren't really that
Set.
clear.
Sure, sure.
So it wasn't. All this came as a very sudden change. This accident here. But as the Bible says, he says, "What Satan meant for evil, God has turned to good." Well, I felt that maybe the hand of God has given me a little bit of grace, taught me a little more patience, and given me the opportunity to inspire other people, perhaps.
Well, you're certainly doing that. I worked in a physical therapy department from the time I was 17 till I was 27, and so when I saw you on this television program, one of the things that struck me was I thought back to that time. So I know what it takes to do the kinds of things that you're doing, not just with your drawings, but with your life. Worked with quads and paras and people whose lives were turned upside down, if you will. So no pun intended. In
I
terms
know. That's isn't that a coincidence?
yeah, yeah, and maybe life, we never know what cards are going to be dealt. I have a granddaughter who lives in a wheelchair. My son lives in a wheelchair. He was in a car accident. So I find myself being surrounded by people whose lives are different than mine, but are so inspiring. And since I've met you, I try to remember the kinds of things you say. Look around you. If the window is open, look up and
That's right.
yeah.
You don't know how you've been blessed. Count your blessings. As bad as you think things are, there's other people that are suffering much worse than you. I found that out at Casa Colina Rehabilitation Hospital and my accident in Upland. So as bad as I was, there was somebody that was in a worse condition. As my back hurt, there was someone with a decubitus, like a bed sore that was very bad. So I didn't really, I'm not a big moaner and whiner, but I felt that since my world was turned upside down, I'm going to turn the entire world
Upside
upside
down.
flipping down. There you go.
It's get back time, huh?
Payback, baby.
Payback. The name of your project, how did you arrive at the Mannheim effect?
Then that's a good question. Negative gravity. I said,
Yeah, negative grade. I think it's very cool. I love it.
because I thought of space, and when you're a spaceship, it's zero gravity. Zero gravity, everybody be just like floating around like balloons. That wouldn't be a plot, floating around. But negative gravity is like the reverse. It's without gravity, so it's pulling it in the negative, the opposite direction. So I said, okay, that's it, negative gravity, and the Mannheim effect. Professor Mannheim just seems like a cool butt name. I just made it up. It sounds German. It sounds science fiction. And so Mannheim.
It sounds
effect.
great. You're not going to give the whole plot away. The young man who
Oh, no. You have to buy the book. And when you see the movie, then you'll say, they changed the ending. Hollywood always changes the ending of movies. So I read the book. So when you get the book, then you'll enjoy it. Together we'll both see if they kept it like the book. I like when movies are kept strictly to the book and they don't have any artistic changes, like H.G. Wells' First Men in the Moon. Wonderful book. I love it. Where Jules Verne's men go around the moon, H.G. Wells goes into the heart of the moon and finds these moon creature, a race of men. I thought that was fantastic. But in the Hollywood movie, they throw a woman in, a blonde lady who was never in the script, never in the book, and she's got her bloomers on floating up. So I said, okay. And when worlds collide, oh my goodness, that angered me so much. They get a ship to bring just the seed of humanity out because the Earth is going to be collided with another planet. And when the spaceship lands, you would think you were in a An Aryan, Nazi Aryan commercial because everyone is blonde. The only room they have, top person they have room enough for, other than these blonde couples, is the dog and their puppy. It's like,
I want to do
oh,
something a little different around
yeah.
here. Huh?
So let's get some color in here to sci-fi. You know.
Well, I'm not just impressed. It's just a wonderful project. You have the last word.
Well, as old as you are, as young as you are, whatever your physical limitations, it's nothing. The secret is the mind. The mind is the life. So never stop dreaming. Never give up, no matter how old you are. There's always room to begin again. Thank you very much.